So I'm going to take a real quick look at the sequel to Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which came out just this weekend. Before I get into this movie, I should probably give my thoughts on the first movie. If you saw my top 10 worst of 2020, I think you know what I thought of it. I thought it was a really bad movie. It had a lot of really bad 90s tropes. It had the stupid road trip plot, which I did not care for. It wasn't funny in the slightest. I don't think I laughed once during that movie. And the action sequences were boring. The new design of Sonic looked way too cartoony and did not look... It looked better than the original design, but it looked like it was kind of chroma key in there. It did not look realistic in the slightest, but it still looked fine. But yeah, it was a really bad... It made number 7 on the worst of 2020 for my list. So yeah, I know the movie has its fans, but I ain't one of them. So when the sequel was announced, I figured it would get a sequel because it made a lot of money at the box office, and quite a few people liked it for some reason. And if you're a Sonic fan, I kind of get it, but I don't know why you would want to watch Sonic just sitting in a car with James Marsden. It is literally Hop 2. It was the exact same thing, just Rabbit sitting in a car with James Marsden. Exact same thing. So I don't get why people got into it. So the sequel, I obviously wasn't really looking forward to, and that first trailer didn't help either. It looked pretty stupid. Then the second trailer came around, and it looked like it was a little more my speed. It went off to these other locations. It was still on Earth, because God forbid we have some cool fantasy worlds. Let me adjust my camera. I just realized it's tilted. Because God forbid we go to any of these fantasy worlds except for the Mushroom Kingdom that Robotnik's on for 5 minutes, maybe less. It was just the opening scene, but it looked like they went off to Siberia. They went off to a lot of other places, so it looked like this was going to be more like an actual Sonic movie. Actually, looked like it was going to be fun, and so my expectations went up a bit, and then it set the tone from the very first scene of whether or not I was going to like this movie, where it was just some scene of Robotnik making some kind of like mushroom coffee, I guess, but it had like a little thing of Sonic, like, looked like he was running, pulling something, and to part of this big, like, Domino's collection that helped make it. And that was kind of funny. Then all of a sudden, the big rock, like, comes down and crushes it, like, one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm gonna plan it out, and then crushes it. It was pretty funny. So that set off, I'm like, wow, this opening scene's pretty funny. Maybe this will be pretty good. And yeah, it's actually decent. This was a lot more my speed than the first movie. Yeah, speed. But yeah, this was a lot better than the first movie. Now, I've never played a Sonic game, ever. Well, no solo Sonic games. I've played some Smash Brothers, but I've never played a solo Sonic game, so I don't have a real connection to any of these characters. But, headache. So I'm just watching these as standalone movies. And again, first one still sucks as a movie. This one is a lot more fun. It's a lot more creative. A lot better fight scenes. And it's just, again, just more up my alley. This time around, Robotnik, of course, comes back. And this time bringing in an echidna named Knuckles, voiced by Idris Elba, who is always awesome. And they go off to find the Master Emerald, which is just this big green emerald, obviously, that can give you the ultimate power, which Robotnik obviously wants for power, and Knuckles wants to regain, not power, balance to his home, because he was among the group that ended up killing Longclaw in the first movie. That was his tribe. And apparently those sides have been at war for a while, which was never hinted at in the first movie, but it was tied together pretty well because this movie has a much better script. And the human characters are still around, but they're not around as much. With one exception of there's this one really long, like 10, maybe 15-minute scene just focusing on the human characters. Like Sonic does not appear on screen during that 10 minutes. Sonic, Tails, Robotnik, Knuckles, none of them are on screen for a good 10 minutes of the movie. Just focusing on this human characters in this one really long stretch. And it's not funny. It's not really clever. It was really boring. And that made it clear that these human characters need to go. And I feel so bad for James Marsden. He gets a lot of shit because he's in a lot of shit movies. He played Cyclops in the X-Men movies, and while people like the X-Men movies, I do too. Some of them, anyway. He played Cyclops, which is like the lamest, like the most bland character in the entire roster. And he was in Hop, and he played a Disney prince in Enchanted. That movie's awesome, but he was a Disney prince. And then there was also Hairspray and all these other stuff. So he's been in some good stuff, but he's mainly known for being in schlock. But this one, he's not around as much in this one, which is an improvement. I like James Marsden, but these human characters just don't need to be there. Because it was very apparent that whenever the human characters, minus Robotnik, were off screen, I was actually having a lot of fun with this movie. But the second they come back on screen, I'm just sitting there thinking, can we skip past this? Nobody cares why they're here. Because they gave an excuse of why Tom and his wife aren't around through most of the movie. But then you could have just left them there. You didn't need to come back to them. You didn't need to keep cutting back to them. Just let Sonic and Tails do their thing. And I guess that's a good transition to the animated characters plus Robotnik. Robotnik's basically the same as he was in the first movie. Unfortunately, he's not very funny in this one again. This movie does have quite a few jokes that do work, but most of them come out of Sonic, Tails, or Knuckles. Not out of Robotnik. Even Marsden gets a good few every now and then, but not Robotnik. Jim Carrey is doing his thing, he's trying his all, but Robotnik's just not funny. Neither is his assistant who shows up again. He's not funny, he's just weird and has no purpose in the story whatsoever. But the main three leads of this movie, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, are the best parts of the movie. Sonic is way less annoying in this movie. He doesn't have as many juvenile jokes. He actually gets some really good laughs. Tails is not nearly as annoying as he is in other properties. And Knuckles, people have compared Knuckles to Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, where he's like, where one, he's like overly serious and he's like, he doesn't really understand sarcasm or a lot of other things, a lot of other Earth stuff. He doesn't understand Earth because he's never been there. So people have compared him to Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, and that is a very fair comparison, and Idris Elba plays the character very well. People were a bit thrown off by his casting as Knuckles, and even I was too, because I've seen enough Sonic properties to know that he shouldn't have this big, super deep, sexy voice like this. But it worked well with the new version of the character. And again, Sonic isn't as annoying, he's actually pretty funny in this one, and Tails isn't as annoying as he is in other properties, so the three, and I like the camaraderie the three have when they finally team up at the end. That must have been really big for Sonic fans to see these three team up in the same, like, all in that one big team-up shot, of course, the three of them, when they're fighting a big robot version of Robotnik. I will say that the final battle, while it was clever, it was fun, it was laid out well, and the action was pretty good, Robotnik, he has this ultimate power, and the only thing he can think of is to make a big-ass robot of himself. I know he gives it, like, a ton of abilities, like, he gives it, like, missiles and, like, laser eyes and everything, but that's I know he had a big-ass robot in other properties, but that's the extent of his ultimate power, is just make a big-ass robot of himself. But whatever, the fight was fun, and there are other action sequences that are cool. I like the snowboard chase after, out in Siberia. There was one dance-off scene that was hilarious. That was really funny. The song choice was a bit weird. They went with Uptown Funk. While I like the song, and I'm glad they didn't pick something I hate, like some other movies I could name, that was a weird choice, but it worked with the movie, and I like the song, so at least it wasn't a song I hate. But it was really funny, and like I said, the jokes worked, the visual gags work better than the verbal jokes, but the verbal jokes do work. Sonic gets a decent amount of laughs out of me, and so does Tails, and so does Knuckles, and Robotnik got a couple, and Marsden got a few, so... But again, the big downgrade of this film was the long 10-minute stretch in the dead middle of the movie after the really cool snowboard chase. And it's just a long stretch of no Sonic, no Tails, no Knuckles, no Robotnik, nothing. Just these bland human characters that nobody gives a shit about. And the worst thing about that section is that it was completely pointless. Where you end that scene was basically where you would have been at had the scene been axed in general. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, but the whole scene could have been, the whole 10 minutes could have been slashed, and you wouldn't have missed a thing. And another thing about this movie is that it's much longer than the first movie. It's about 20 minutes longer. It's a little over 2 hours, I think. But to be fair, the only time I was feeling it was during that long stretch of no Sonic or anybody else. That was the only time I felt it. I've seen people say, oh, this movie was too long. And I think they're mostly referring to the points where it cuts back to the human characters. Like, had you axed those, it would have been around the same length as the first movie. And I think that would have been a better option. Just keep them out of it in general. You have an excuse to get rid of them. Leave them out of the movie. Or at least as much as possible. You don't need to keep cutting back to these boring scenes. But, yeah, I don't have a ton more to say about this movie. It was actually much better than I was expecting. It was way better than the first movie. I am shocked I even liked it at all. And I definitely go recommend it. If you're a Sonic fan, you've probably already seen it. This movie's making bank. And if you're not a Sonic fan, if you didn't like the first movie, you'll probably like this one. You'll at least like it more. You'll at least, even if you don't like it, you'll think it's at least better than the first movie. I don't think there's anybody who's going to tell me that the first movie was better. And if they do, well, you're wrong. Because there was nothing enjoyable about the first movie. It was a long, boring slog with nothing creative, nothing clever, nothing funny. This one was creative, clever, and funny, and actually had some really cool scenes. Like, there was another scene later on that takes place in this kind of maze, this kind of Indiana Jones maze with traps and everything, and it got some good laughs. Even that was one of the few times Robotnik actually made me laugh. And the fight scenes between Sonic and Knuckles are a lot of fun. Just watching Knuckles beat the shit out of Sonic is fun as hell. And I like how the team, I like the camaraderie the three have by the end of the movie. So yeah, this is very enjoyable. I'm giving Sonic the Hedgehog 2 a B-. That's surprising even me. So thank you so much for watching, and what do you think of this movie? And what do you think of the first movie? Do you think the first one's better? Do you think the second one's better? Do you like the games? Are you even a Sonic fan at all? So let me know down in the comments, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.